The plot begins in a courtroom where an 18-year-old boy, presented as a member of an undisclosed minority group, though some interpretation of the film decide that he is Puerto Rican, from a New York City slum, is on trial for allegedly stabbing his father to death. The final closing arguments are made, and the judge orders the jury to decide whether the boy is guilty of murder. The judge then informed them that a guilty conviction will result in a mandatory death sentence. The 12-man jury retreats to a private chamber for a brief introduction before beginning deliberations. With the exception of juror number 8, Henry Fonda, it is clear that the jurors have already determined that the youngster is guilty and want to return their verdict fast, without deliberation. He is the sole not guilty vote in a preliminary tally. He argues that he has too much at stake to accept the ruling without first discussing it. His vote irritates the other jurors, particularly Juror 7, Jack Warden, who has tickets to the evening's baseball game, and Juror 10, Ed Begley, who believes that everyone from the slums is bad. The remainder of the video focuses on the jury's difficulty in obtaining a unanimous judgment.
I just think he's guilty.
You can't refute facts. The kid is guilty.
While numerous jurors have personal preconceptions, Juror 8 believes that the evidence given in the case is circumstantial and that the youngster deserves a fair trial. He questions the accuracy and reliability of the murder's only 2 witnesses. Also, the rarity of the murder weapon, a common switchblade of which he owns an identical copy, and the overall questionable circumstances. He goes on to say that he cannot vote guilty when he believes there is substantial doubt about the boy's culpability. After arguing many issues and receiving no good responses from the others, Juror 8 grudgingly admits that all he appears to be achieving is hanging the jury. He takes a big risk. He seeks another vote, this time by secret ballot. He offers that he refrain from voting, and that if the other 11 jurors remain united in their guilty verdict, he will accept their judgment.
All right, let's do it the hard way.
That sounds fair. Everyone agreed?
The secret ballot is cast.
Guilty? Guilty.
And a fresh not guilty vote emerges. Juror 9 is the first to endorse Juror 8, believing that his ideas merit further debate. Juror 8 makes a compelling case that one of the witnesses who claimed to have heard the boy yell, "I'm going to kill you," shortly before the murder, could not have heard the voices as clearly as he had testified, as well as stating that "I'm going to kill you" is frequently said by people who do not mean it literally.
Mr. Foreman, I'd like to change my vote to not guilty.
Juror 5, who grew up in a slum, changes his vote to not guilty. Juror 3 is outraged, accusing 5 of flipping just because he is sympathetic to slum children. Soon after, Juror 11 asks whether the defendant could have legitimately departed the scene and returned 3 hours later to grab the knife, and he alters his vote.
I vote not guilty.
Juror 8 then used another strategy to call into doubt the witness's second allegation, that after learning of the murder, he went to the door of his apartment and saw the defendant fleeing the building, owing to the witness's stroke, which limited his ability to walk. After an experiment, the jury determines that the witness would not have made it to the door in time to observe the defendant rush out. Some jurors determine that, based on what he heard before, the witness must have just thought it was the defendant fleeing. Juror 3, becoming more angry during the proceedings, erupts in a rant. "He's got to burn. He is slipping through our fingers." Juror 8 criticizes him, calling him a self-appointed public avenger and a sadist who wants the defendant to die only for personal reasons rather than facts. Juror 3 exclaims, "I'll kill him," and lunges at 8, but is stopped by 2 others. 8 gently responds, "You don't really mean you'll kill me, do you?" thus supporting the argument he made previously. Jurors 2
Not guilty.
and 6
Not guilty.
likewise vote not guilty, tying the decision at 6-6. The storm breaks and it begins to rain fiercely, implying that the baseball game to which Juror 7 had tickets would be cancelled. When Juror 4 says he doesn't believe the boy's alibi, which was that he was at the movies with a few friends at the time of the murder because he couldn't remember what movies he watched 3 hours later. 8 tests 4's ability to recall a real event. When 4 only recalls the event of the preceding 5 days, 8 argues that being under emotional stress might cause you to forget some things. And since 4 had not been under emotional stress, there was no reason to believe the youngster could recall the movie he saw. Juror 2 questions the prosecution's contention that the accused, who was nearly a foot shorter than the victim, was able to stab him in a fashion that resulted in the downward stab wound located on his corpse. Jurors 3 and 8 undertake an experiment to see if a shorter person can thrust downward into taller person. The experiment proves that it is possible, but Juror 5 then explains that he grew up in the midst of knife fights in his neighborhood and demonstrates through the proper of use of switchblade, and no one so much shorter than his opponent would have held a switchblade in such a way as to stab downward, as it would have been too awkward. Rather, someone significantly shorter than his opponent might stab underhanded at an upward angle. This information strengthens the conviction of numerous jurors that the prisoner is not guilty. Juror 7 becomes increasingly agitated and alters his vote solely so that the deliberation may conclude, angering both Juror 3 and Juror 11, who were then on opposing side of the issue. Juror 11, an immigrant who has frequently demonstrated tremendous national pride, questions Juror 7 about using his vote previously, and Juror 7 ultimately acknowledged that he sincerely feels that defendant is not guilty. Jurors 1 and 12 are the next to change their votes, bringing the total to 9-3. Jurors 3, 4, and 10 are the only dissidents remaining. Outraged at how the proceedings have unfolded, Juror 10 goes on a rant about why people from the slums cannot be trusted, how they are no better than animals who cheerfully kill each other for sport. As he talks, the other jurors turn away from him, beginning with Juror 5 and ending with Juror 4. Juror 10, perplexed and troubled by the response to his rant, continues in rapidly declining voice and attitude, culminating with entreaty, "Listen to me, listen." Juror 4, the only one remaining facing him, says tersely, "I have. Now sit down and avoid opening your lips again." Juror 8 talks gently on the problems of bias, and the other jurors slowly return to their seats. When asked why they still believe there is no reasonable doubt, Juror 4 states that despite all of the other evidence that has been called into question, the fact that the woman who saw the murder from her bedroom window across the street via a passing train remains solid evidence.
All right, I'm changing my vote. He's guilty.
Juror 12 flips his vote back to guilty after he brings this out, resulting in another 8-4 vote. Juror 9 then notices Juror 4 rub his nose, which is irritated by his glasses, and realizes that, like Juror 4, the witness who allegedly saw the murder had impressions in the sides of her nose, indicating that she wore glasses but did not wear them in the court out of vanity. He cannily asks Juror 4 if he wears his eyeglasses to sleep, and Juror 4 admits he does not. No one does.
No one wears eyeglasses to bed.
Juror 8 says that there was no reason to anticipate the witness to be wearing her glasses while attempting to sleep, and he emphasizes that the incident occurred so quickly that she would not have had time to put them on. After he brings this out, Jurors 10, 12,
Not guilty.
and 4 all shift their vote to not guilty.
I'm convinced. Not guilty.
Jury 3 is the last surviving jury who has voted guilty. A lengthy dispute with Juror 8 concludes in 3 disclosing that he had a strained connection with his son, and his rage over this fact is the primary reason he wants the defendant found guilty. Juror 3 loses his rage and tears up a photo of himself and his kid before suddenly breaking down, sobbing and voting not guilty,
Not guilty.
resulting in an unanimous vote. As the jurors leave the room, 8 shows compassion by offering his coat to the heartbroken 3. The narrative concludes with the amicable jurors 8 and 9 exchanging their names and all jurors descending the courtroom steps to return to their own lives. Thanks for watching.